Hi, this is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
Happy Devils Monday. This is the Woo Report. The Woo Report, episode 224. I'm your host, Sam Woo. Streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Let's Go Devils Network. Hello, everybody. I'm back after a long day. Lots of online trolling today. Lots of news today with Bratt's arbitration numbers. We'll put out a poll out there soon. Did Fitzy lowball Jesper Bratt? We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Also, trolling Devils fans. Twitter went out of control today. Over a simple question, is Marty Brodeur one of the greatest of all time? Or something to that effect, not verbatim. And someone up in Montreal, Andrew Berkshire, decided to chime in and, I don't know, I think he's making himself look pretty ridiculous, to be honest. We'll talk about that a little later, but let's just get to the chase about Jesper Bratt today. Look, a lot of fans thought that he was worth about $6.5, $7 million, perhaps. But we talked about this on the podcast many times. He had one good year, one breakout year. Inconsistent before last season. But this season, credit Jesper Bratt. He came into training camp wanting to be one of the pillars of the team, wanted to be one of the core leaders of the team, and he performed a 70-something point performance this season, 26 goals, the rest assists. But the numbers that came out, well, I guess Tom Fitzgerald, as part of the procedures, would go 1 year, 4-something million, while Bratt was up around 6.5 million. Quite a bit of gap. And, you know, the people in the press, they're going to tell you, oh, this is just part of the business. You start off low, they start off high, and then you come to an agreement. But I'll be honest with you. I don't like the process because you have that small chance of possibilities of pissing someone off or pissing your fan base off or something goes bad in arbitration when Tom Fitzgerald has to go in there and bang the price down so he can get everybody under the salary cap. We're talking about a 1-year deal here. And some of the fans are taking their displeasure with Bratt's agent. He's just doing his job. He's just doing his job. And how many times did Jesper Bratt over the last 3 years had to get benched? You know, I hate to bring up the past because I want to move forward, but when you're talking about salary and arbitration numbers, look, because this has gone this far in the process, heading towards arbitration, I know Amanda Stein said, hey, this is part of the business. You start low, you start high, you try to find a compromise in the middle. It's all in good fun. That's part of the process. But no. Because now we're getting this far. Now, as a podcaster, I'm going to start banging down the price of Jesper Bratt. And maybe I'll bang him down to the point where, do you really want him on the team anymore? Do you want to trade him? Look, a lot of Devils fans with that whole Tkachuk thing going on, some said, hey, let's package Jesper Bratt. Well, what Calgary got in return Jesper Bratt would be an afterthought compared to the guys that Calgary got from the Florida Panthers. So I think a lot of us fans are overvaluating Jesper Bratt because we see the vision of Jesper Bratt. We see the future of Jesper Bratt. But you got to go by track record as well. Now, Ramona Rice says, you're wrong, Sam. See, this is bad. I like Ramona Rice. She's from Kentucky. She's a Devils fan. She's a big Jesper Bratt supporter. But this is what happens when you let things get near arbitration hearings. We start to fight among ourselves. And somebody may get upset. Somebody may get their feelings hurt. And I don't want to insult the young generation, millennials, but you tend to get upset over the littlest things too much. And this is where we're going to have to see the masterful Tom Fitzgerald, how he can just kind of thread the needle and politely say, hey, you had a great year, but there's not enough to give you over $6 million, and here's why. Now, Bratt, and he's entitled to this, he can bet on himself and saying, you know what? I am a consistent player. I'm one of the pillars of this team. If you want to put me on a one-year deal at 5.5, I'm going to show you should have made a better deal earlier. The deal's still on the table, I guess. I don't know, but we're talking about arbitration numbers, what was sent. But I will tell you this. If I were to negotiate this, I would have done the same exact thing as Tom Fitzgerald. Okay, Jesper Bratt is not the end-all, be-all of this team. Pretty much no one is untouchable on this New Jersey Devils team except for Jack Hughes. That's my opinion. You may argue with me about Nico Hischier, but if you were to make a trade for Tkachuk, I'm not even sure Nico Hischier can make the cut compared to the players that Calgary got back in return. It's all about valuation, folks. It's all about valuation. Are we overvaluating Jesper Bratt? And these are tough. This is tough talk. It's tough love, Devils fans. I'm seeing the YouTube live chiming in. Shane Van Sickle, Paul C., chiming in. Matt Junio is chiming in. Rob Klebosis is chiming in. Solid player is what Rob Klebosis said, but not an impact player to me yet. Now, Rob Klebosis has high standards, so I don't know. But, David Holliday says, just curious on the opinion of all the questions here. Who is better, Bratt or Nico? You know what? Nico is a centerman. The value of centerman, like Nico, holds more weight than a winger, and that's my opinion. So I would go with Nico Hischier, especially when he's wearing the captaincy on his sweater. He wears the C out of responsibility, leadership. So, obviously Nico Hischier is making more than Jesper Bratt, even with the arbitration numbers, if Jesper Bratt were to get the 6.5. But I think a lot of us fans need to come back to reality here. It was just one good season. Could you imagine if this was last year when Pavel Zacha, you imagine if he was heading towards restricted free agency last year and what he could have gotten? Would you give him about 5.5, $6 million? No, he got traded away. Now, Jesper Bratt, late round pick. He's a guy that you want to root for. I'm not going to knock him down on that. But we need to see more consistent numbers here. And now if he puts up 73 points or higher, next season, then we can start talking about $7 million a year, long-term deal with Jesper Bratt. But now, are Bratt's numbers inflated when he played with Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier? You can make that argument too. Is he a beneficiary of Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier and Dawson Mercer? I don't think so, 100%, but it certainly does help to be playing on a line with those two or three. So those are my thoughts about the Bratt's arbitration numbers. I think a lot of us Devils fans, including myself, we tend to get a little bit overzealous. But as what Ray Leo says on the Facebook Live, this all comes down to financial discipline. Oh, didn't we talk about financial discipline beginning of free agency? Not paying Goudreau $10 million a year, because what that would do with the cap. And some of you folks on YouTube Live, you're saying, whoa, I could do the math. No, you couldn't. Because right now the Devils are up against the cap. Even if they do sign Bratt, they're spending all of it for a team that was, 37 points out of a playoff spot? And Eric Selden asks, does Bratt make other players better, or is he a one-way player? YouTube Live, have you fallen asleep? Paul C. says we should settle for a bridge contract. Meow, meow. Shane Van Sickle, 6.5, 6.8. I think it's going to end up at 5.7. A little bit tilted towards Jesper Bratt, but you know what? Tom Fitzgerald's number was a little low. Just a little low. And again, $700,000 raise for a breakout year. Maybe did he make, I don't know. He made $3.64 million last season? I think a minimum Fitzgerald should have put 4.75, 4.8. And again, the lowballing serves as motivation, chip on the shoulder for Jesper Bratt. But I don't know, folks. I don't know. I don't want this to go this far. Technique says Bratt, I believe, works both ways. He helps players around him and vice versa, but doesn't blow it away on either end. Look, I think he's a good little gritty player. I think pound for pound, in the featherweight division of NHL players, I think he holds his own. Bratt does mix it up, defends his teammates when things happen, and you wouldn't think so, but he does. Is it effective? No, but I love the heart in the player. Again, something that gets lost with analytics. So, and I know you fans are arguing in the Facebook Live, especially. Facebook Live has been very lively chatter. Jim Leahy's here. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that YouTube Live didn't, think that it was all Facebook Live today. I love conversation. I love what you guys are saying. Ryan Mann says the arbitration dollar amount doesn't matter. It's the long-term dollars that mean something. Very true. Very true. But also the optics do mean something as well. I mean, if you were Jesper Bratt and you saw 4-something for me from Fitzy, he's looking to get a hometown discount, isn't he? That's what I would say. But of course, at the end of the day, you got to come to the table, try to make a deal. The goal here is to try to make a deal. The goal here is not to rip off either party. Remember that, folks. You make deals to make deals, if that makes sense. And I think right now what Tom Fitzgerald is doing, I think is great, because his past history, if you connect the dots about Tom Fitzgerald, he's very player friendly, very sensitive to those that he trades. I think he's emotionally attached to the players, but he also knows that it's a business, that he's trying to build a team, the team concept. And Jesper Bratt is one of those team players. And yeah, I mean, Ryan Mann says, look, when I go to my boss for a raise, I always aim high, we settle lower, and I'm happy. Fitz is doing the same thing from his end. True, but you know what? Sometimes if you go too low, sometimes, I mean, look, I've been in negotiations in my personal business life where you go too low, that's not a non starter. And you never want to hear those words. This number is a non starter. Boom, send it back. I'm not going to negotiate. And you know what? Again, I get it. You start off low, but you got to be careful of going too low. And on the flip side, you have to worry about going too high. But where is that agreement? Where is that middle point? I don't call it compromise. I call it a win-win. Could you get a win-win situation? Who has the leverage here? Does Jesper Bratt have the leverage here, or do the New Jersey Devils? If you ask me, the New Jersey Devils have all the leverage here because he's a restricted free agent. There will be no offer sheets from other parties, and it's not like Jesper Bratt is a generational player either. 6th-round pick. Hate to break it to you, Ramona Rice, but if the Devils lose Jesper Bratt, I wouldn't lose that much sleep over. It would kind of suck to lose, one of the underdogs in the 6th round in 2016. But if Jesper Bratt walks, what did you really lose at that point? And you always negotiate on a position of strength. And that's what both sides are doing right now. But I truly believe that Fitzmagic, he's a very player friendly, and I think he's going to be very non-abrasive and rough around the edges. David Holliday says, I disagree about leverage. The Devils can hardball him right now, and they ticked him off. But if they ticked him off, we would be in trouble because he would be on a better team. Look, you know what? You're entitled to your opinion, but I think the Devils have the leverage here. Honestly, if Bratt walks, big whoop. You have that salary cap space to go out in free agency. You could pay your players long term. I don't think it's the end of the world. Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, those are the leaders on the team. Dougie Hamilton is a leader. He's here for long term. Do I want to see Bratt return? Yes. But it's just a matter of, does he really want to be here? And tell you the truth, if Bratt was making more than Palat, I think there's something wrong with Fitzy's salary structure here. I don't think Bratt is worth over 6 for next season. But if they're able to get a 7-8 year deal, I would expect a hometown discount because you're only basing on 1 year. If you look at Alex DeBrincat, he's a proven 40-goal scorer. He should get paid. And he did. Brad says that NHL needs to adopt the Larry Bird exception for re-signing players. Let's see here. Well, we don't lose a 5th-round pick, but a player that made 70 points, 6th-round pick, has a high ceiling. But that was just one season, Mateo. That's one season. Ramona Rice says Palat's not worth what he got. He's too old. Well, how many Stanley Cup champions do the Devils have on their roster other than Palat? Or maybe I'm over-evaluating Palat. See? There's always two sides to the equation. All right, so I think I've already ruffled enough feathers about Jesper Bratt. We'll find out on Wednesday. But trolling Devils fans, let's get to that subject on Andrew Berkshire's response to Trey Matthews, the Locked On Devils tweet about the greatest goaltender of all time. He's putting, Trey Matthews put an innocent tweet out there, and, about Dominic Hasek, Patrick Waugh, all that kind of stuff. And Andrew Berkshire from Montreal, but he doesn't even think that Brodeur is even in the top 5 of all time. Now, to me, this is trolling. This is total trolling. And then you're just going to blurt out things that really makes no sense, because if you're from Montreal and you grew up in the 70s and you watched Ken Dryden play for the Montreal Canadiens in the 70s, you would know that they played the trap, a very defensive style hockey that was very effective. Larry Robinson, Hall of Fame defenseman, was on that team. Jacques Lemaire, I believe Guy Lafleur, a lot of players on that team. And they had multiple successes. It was a dynasty of sorts. And Ken Dryden is a celebrated goaltender in Montreal. Hockey Hall of Famer. Also, if you remember Ken Dryden, Miracle on Ice, he was the color guy next to Al Michaels. Ken Dryden was a member of Parliament in the Canadian government. This guy, has a, very smart individual, and his playing career, landed him in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Vezina trophies, stood at 6'4". His number 29 is retired by the Canadiens. And he played under the same system as Martin Brodeur. Now, I'm going to make the argument about Marty Brodeur that he may have been the greatest goaltender to ever play in that trap system. They changed rules, and we lost a year of hockey because, partially to Marty Brodeur, because the game was so stifling. They had to take out the red line. They also invented a trapezoid behind the net, which is still there to this day, which they were trying to take away a skill from a goaltender to be that third D guy to move the puck along. Marty Brodeur, it was just kind of like Wilt Chamberlain. Wilt Chamberlain, you know what? They made rules because he was just so dominant. They changed the rules. And same with Marty Brodeur. But to say he's not top 5 of all time, you need a better reason than that. Because Brodeur didn't just play in the trap era, which eventually they changed the rules. He still had success afterwards. And also, by the way, people forget that the 2000-2001 Devils led the NHL in scoring. Don't tell me that's boring. Okay? Don't penalize Marty Brodeur, because he was on a great team, he was part of a great team. Okay, you can make the argument, well, take away the awards, take away this, that. Was it the longevity? Let me tell you something about, number one, let's go back to the trap era. There were times that Brodeur didn't see a shot for 17 minutes in a game. And suddenly he would see a flurry about 5 or 6 in a couple minutes. Do you know how hard it is for a goaltender to stay awake and be fresh and be on alert? Plus, some of the records he broke were actually considered unbreakable, like the shutout record that was held by Terry Sawchuk for so many years. And Brodeur not only broke it, he blew the door down and ended up with 125 shutouts, with I think 124 with the New Jersey Devils, to his career. And also Brodeur was a hybrid. He was a hybrid goaltender. He wasn't a butterfly or purely stand-up. He was both whenever he felt like it. More of a 70-30. And the impact that Brodeur has had on the game, Shorts guy would tell you that, that's the reason why I played the goaltending position. The athleticism of Marty Brodeur. He was a big goaltender, not the biggest, like Mackenzie Blackwood, Mac Black, but he was a tall goaltender. And, Brodeur was so consistent for so many years. Brodeur was a top 5 goaltender for almost 2 decades. And the years that he did not win the Vezina, he had a lower goals against average than Dominik Hasek, but somehow Hasek wins the Vezina. Tells you how great Brodeur was and how great Dominik Hasek was. But Brodeur, as well, won gold for Team Canada. And I challenge Andrew Berkshire. You won your country gold when your country couldn't even win gold for a while. And in big games. And I think that should be noted as well on the international circuit. Marty Brodeur. When Patrick Waugh realized that Marty Brodeur was going to break his all-time wins record, he came back out of respect, had a conversation with Brodeur. I think Brodeur kind of felt little bad how things went in Nagano, where the competitive side of Patrick Waugh, which makes him great, but the double-edged sword there is he can be very abrasive, not giving Marty a chance. But now, and then in retirement, he showed Marty the respect. Patrick Waugh is one of the greatest goaltenders of all time. One of the most clutch goaltenders in the last 40 years. And he gave Marty that respect, knowing that he is an elite goaltender. And the least you could do, if you're going to troll Devils fans, is you better back up what you say why Marty Brodeur is not a top 5 goaltender. If I were to pick top 5 goaltenders of all time, Martin Brodeur would be one of them. Another one, Terry Sawchuk. Another generation. I would put in Patrick Waugh as well. I always liked Eddie Belfour, but I would put Tretiak as well. Soviet goaltender, whom Marty Brodeur, I believe, was schooled by, went to his school, and maybe Dominic Hasek as well. But to say Marty Brodeur not in the top 5 is just unbelievable. And I don't think I'm being a homer even saying that. Let me ask you, YouTube Live, am I being a homer by saying that? You know, and especially in this analytics stats world, if anything, you should be putting Marty Brodeur in the top 5. Greatest goalie of all time, we can have arguments over. Because I could tell you right now, and I hate to say it, one of the greatest performances in one season, I think Mike Richter in '94 was a hell of a goaltender that brought the Rangers the cup. And I hate to say it, but he outperformed a lot of great goalies. Unfortunately, Marty was, in that Game 7. But, I'm being honest here. I mean, Mike Richter was a really good goaltender, but he had injury issues. He didn't have the longevity. But he did have a magical season to his resume. Also, let's talk about underrated goaltenders. I always liked Mike Vernon and Chris Osgood. I always liked them in net. Ryan Miller was solid. Marc-Andre Fleury. Just love the attitude of Marc-Andre Fleury. Rick DiPietro signing that big contract, that ridiculous contract, which I think he's still getting paid. I think he's on the Bobby Bonilla plan, where they're paying him to 2027 or something like that. But yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. Again, I don't want to bash Andrew Berkshire or Berkshire. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. It could go either or. Up in Canada, they may pronounce names differently. But to say not in the top 5 and then be emphatic about it, I don't know. I don't get it. But it makes good talk in the off season. But I just want to get the point out there that Ken Dryden is celebrated all over Canada. Hate to break it to you, folks. He played in the same system as Marty Brodeur, maybe even more airtight. Bernie Parent, Eric Sullivan said, great goaltender. Great goaltender. I've met Bernie Parent several times. Really nice guy. Really, really, really nice guy. Joked around with him a couple times. Very, very nice guy. Hey, who knows? Maybe we'll have him on the podcast one day. Bernie Parent. Let's ask for his opinion. Peter Seifert says, Sam Woo. Well, hello, Peter. Paul C. says, no, he's on crack. Marty top 5. I say he's top 5. He's got to be top 5. But not to consider him in the top 5. Ugh. Worst goaltender? Trying to think here. Worst goaltender. I don't know. Well, folks, that's it for now on the Woo Report. Dropping the podcast at midnight. We'll continue the debate, continue the fight. Tomorrow night, we're going to have to figure this one out. Tomorrow night, got a special guest on the podcast, on the Woo Report. Rebecca Moose Morris of the PHF and I will be on. Where will we be? I don't know. I don't know yet. We'll have to figure it out. Maybe I'll ask Rebecca about Marty. We're going to talk a little bit about hockey grit, because I think that's what the Devils need, a little bit of attitude, personality. Sometimes we get lost in the shuffle of skills, cap, analytics. This team needs a little bit of identity, don't they? And I think that's what's missing of the New Jersey Devils. Identity. What is their identity? And could it be Jesper Bratt is part of that identity? We'll talk later about it tomorrow night on the Woo Report. We'll try to make it happen. We'll be live on a live remote on location at a restaurant near you. Well, thank you, folks. Thank you for joining me. Till next time, this is the Woo Report. Let's go, Devils.